37 is areas of combined polygons, and basically what that means is you're going to use what you know about finding the area of a triangle, which is 1/2 the base times the height, or the area of a rectangle, which is the base times the height. And you're going to divide a more complex shape into rectangles and triangles and either add or subtract to get the area of that complex shape. We'll practice that in a little bit. Of the 1,800 people at the zoo, 3/5 were children. How many children were at the zoo? So we have 3/5 of 1,800. Of means multiply. So we have 3/5 times 1,800. And what that means is we take 1,800 divided by 5, multiply it by 3. So 1,800 divided by 5. 5 goes into 18 3 times. 6 and 0. So 360 takes care of the 5. Then we need to know what is 3 times 360. We have 0, 18, and then 10. So 1,080. Oops. At the zoo, the ratio of spotted cats to striped cats was 2:5. So spots to stripes was 2:5. If there were 12 spotted cats, how many striped cats were there? So we can look at this and we say, well, to go from 2 to 12, we can multiply by 6. So we have to do the same on the bottom. 5 times 6 is 30. In the reptile section, the ratio of lizards to snakes was 2:9. If there were 36 snakes, how many lizards were there? Well, to go from 9 to 36, we multiply by 4. Got to do that on the top, 2. And 2 times 4 is 8. If the space shuttle travels completely around the world in 90 minutes, how many times will it circle the globe in a full week? So we have one time around per 90 minutes. And then we have to figure out into days and weeks. Then we have 60 minutes. I put it on top so it can cancel the minutes on the bottom in the previous one. Per 1 hour. Minutes cancel. Then I have 24 hours on top again so it cancels it on the bottom per day. And then we have 7 days per 1 week. So what I'm left with is times around per week. which is exactly what they're asking me. How many times do I go around in 1 week? So what this translates into is everything on top gets multiplied. So 1 times 60 is 60 times 24 times 7, and anything on the bottom gets divided. So divided by 90, divided by 1, 1, 1, that's all the same. So if I put this into a calculator, and this is a pretty big number, so you could do this on a calculator. I get 112. Times around per week. The perimeter of a square is 4 times the length of one of its sides. In this table, we show the perimeter of a square with a side length of 3 units. Copy this table. Imagine 2 more squares with different side lengths. Record the lengths and perimeters of those squares in your table. So in this one, you make up your own numbers. So let's say the side length is 12, and another side length is 0.5. So according to this, you take 4 times the side length, so 4 times 12, and the perimeter of that one would be 48. 4 times the side length in this one, 4 times a half, half of 4 is 2. So the perimeter of that one would be 2. So on this one, I want you to make up your own numbers. It's not entirely difficult, and filled in them with something other than 12 and 0.5. A stop sign is the shape of a regular octagon. How many stop signs have sides 12 inches long? So one thing that you need to know is that the word regular, when you're talking about shapes, means all sides are equal. So many stop signs have sides 12 inches long. What is the perimeter of a regular octagon with sides 12 inches long? So an octagon has 8 sides. So we could add 8 together, or 12 together 8 times, or we could say that the perimeter of a regular octagon is 8 times the side length, and in this case the side length is 8. And 8 times 10 is 80, and 8 times 2 is 16. 80 and 16 is 96. Convert your answer in part A to feet. Well, we have 96 inches, and then there are 12 inches in 1 foot. Inches cancel, and this shows us that we want to take 96 and divide it by 12, and that's going to be 8, kind of what we just figured out here. So 8 feet. Another way to do that would be to take your original number, which is 12-inch sides, and just convert that to feet. Then we would have 8 times 1 foot gives us 8 feet perimeter. Triangles ABD and ECD are similar. So ABD is this outside triangle here. And then ECD is this smaller triangle in here. If the measure of angle A is 60 degrees, then what is the measure of angle CED? So this angle right here. Well, since those two are corresponding angles between similar triangles, they have to be equal. So they have to be the same, 60 degrees. What is the measure of angle D? Well, if I look at the big triangle, ABD, I have angle A is 60, angle B is 90. So 180 minus 60 minus 90 would give me 30. And this is a special type of triangle. When you see a right angle with 60 degrees, you automatically know the other one is 30. It's called a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Which side of triangle ECD corresponds to side AD of ABD? So here's side AD, right here. So which side in the blue triangle corresponds? Well, that's the hypotenuse of the triangle, the side opposite the right angle, and the side opposite the right angle is side ED. In 8, it's asking us to solve a proportion, and it's not super straightforward to go from 10 to 15. There's not a whole number that does that for us. So what we can do is just cross multiply. So we do the two numbers that are diagonal, 6 times 15, and 6 times 10 is 60, 5 times 6 is 30, so that's 90. And then you take that and you divide it by the number that's diagonal from the variable. So 90 divided by 10 is 9. That's your answer. In number 9, another way to solve a proportion is to look and say, okay, to go from one side to the other, what do I do? To go from 5 to 20, I multiply by 4. So to go from x to 4, I must have multiplied by 4. Well, what number times 4 gives me 4? That number is 1. In number 10, find the area and perimeter of a triangle with vertices at 0, 0, -5, 0, and 0, -12. That was a little off the page there. So we have got a little crooked there. So this side here is 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This side here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to find the area, we take 1/2 the base times the height. The base is 5. 5 times 12 is 60. Half of 60 is 30. And we don't know what the units are, so we just say units squared because it's area. Now to find perimeter, we have to figure out what is this side over here. And that is c in the Pythagorean theorem. So we would say a squared is 5, so 5 squared plus b is 12 squared equals c squared. 5 squared is 25, 12 squared is 144, and c squared. 25 and 144 is 169. To figure out what just c is, we take the square root. Square root of 169, that's one that you should just know, is 13. So this side over here is 13. So now to find the perimeter, we have 5 plus 12 plus 13. 5 and 12 is 17, and 13 is 30. So this is 30, and it's perimeter, so we just say units. We're not sure what the units are, they're just units. Find the area and perimeter of this pentagon. Pentagon means 5 sides. Dimensions are in feet. So if I want to find the area, I'm going to divide it into 2 shapes that I know how to find the area of. The first one is this rectangle. And if this was the only thing that they gave me, I would have a rectangle that's 12 by 14. So I would say the area is 12 times 14. Well, 12 times 12 is 144, and then 2 more 12s is 24, so 168. Then the second one that we look at is the triangle on top. And remember that the base and the height of a triangle are perpendicular to each other. They form a right angle. So the base and the height of this triangle are 10 and 10. So the area is 1/2 the base times the height, which is 1/2 of 100, which is 50. So now to figure out the final answer, I add the two pieces of area together. So the entire area of that pentagon is 218 feet squared. To find the perimeter, we just add up all the sides. So we have 12 plus 14 plus 12 plus 10 plus 10. We should have 5 sides since it's a pentagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 12 and 12 is 24, 10 and 10 is 20, so that's 44, and 14 is 58. And with perimeter, we just have the units, so feet. Expand. When they say expand, what they want you to do is use the distributive property. So this -3 gets multiplied by x, and then it gets multiplied by y, and then it gets multiplied by 5, so -3 times x is just -3. Minus -3 times y would be plus 3y, because when I subtract the negative, it's the same thing as adding a positive. So -3x plus 3y, and then adding -15, because -3 times 5 is -15. Adding -15 is the same thing as subtracting 15. So there's that one. And I kind of wrote over here, but we want to factor 4x minus 2. And what that means is we're looking at these two terms and what do they have in common? Well, they're both multiples of 2. So I can say that 4x is actually 2 times 2x. Because 2 times 2 would give me 4. And then 2 I can say is 2 times 1. So these 2's go outside the parentheses, and I'm left with 2x inside the parentheses. Write each of the following as a reduced fraction and as a decimal. So 99% as a fraction means 99 over 100, which would be the decimal 99 hundredths. And then to reduce the fraction 180 over 36, the easiest thing to do first is when you have the same number of zeros or zeros that line up in a fraction, you can get rid of them. So now we have 18 over 36. If I divide the top and bottom by 18, 18 divided by 18 is 1, 36 divided by 18 is 2. So as a reduced fraction, it's 1/2, which we know as a decimal is 0.5. Number 14, 35x over -7. I can divide those two numbers. 35 divided by -7 35 divided by 7 is 5. And since they're opposite signs, my answer is going to be negative. So that gives me negative 5 for that part. And then the x didn't get anything done with it, so it's just negative 5x. Number 15, if I was to write this out, I would say x times x on top, and then x times x times x times x is x to the fourth, and then another x on the bottom. So these ones, since they match up on top and bottom, cancel. And when I don't have anything left on the top, it's really a 1. So I have 1 over x squared because there's 2 x's. In number 16, it's order of operations. So according to order of operations, parentheses come first. So I do in the parentheses these squareds first. 10 squared is 100. 3 squared is 9. Um, 10 times 9 is 90. 10 minus 90, or 100 minus 90 is 10. And then I can do this multiplication. And 10 plus 100 is 110. So I have negative 2 cubed, which means negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, because 2 times 2 is 4, and those have the same sign. And then 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, because 4 times 2 is 8, and these have opposite signs. And then we have negative 3 squared, which is negative 3 times negative 3. 3 times 3 is 9, and they have the same sign, so it's positive 9. So this then turns into negative 8 plus 9, which is positive 1. You subtract the 2 since they're opposite signs. 9 minus 8 is 1, and the sign of the bigger number 9 is positive. 9/10 minus 3/4 times 2/5. The multiplication comes before the subtraction. So I have 9/10 minus 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 5 is 20. I need these to be with the same denominator. And I see that if I divide the top and bottom of this fraction by 2, I'll get something over 10. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So now I have 9/10 minus 3/10, which is 6/10. And I gotta reduce that since they're both even. Divide by 2, which gives me 3/5 as my final answer. Division comes first, so I'm going to do 6/7 divided by 2/7, and when we divide by a fraction, it's the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal of 2/7 is just the fraction flipped over, 7/2. When things are opposite and they're the same, they cancel out. 7 divided by 7 is 1. And then I would have 6 times 1 is 6, 1 times 2 is 2, plus 1/2. 6/2 plus 1/2 makes 7/2, and that would give me 3 whole, and then a half left over. 7 divided by 2, 2 goes into 7 3 times, and there's 1 left over. If we collect like terms, we have to look at the letter and the exponent on it. So this one has x squared, and this is also x squared. So I have positive x squared and positive x squared gives me 2 of them, so 2x squared. Okay, so I've done those ones. Then I look, and this is plus x and plus 3x. So I have 1x and 3 x's gives me 4 x's. And then the last one, I have plus 1 and plus 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. In 21, again, we have to look for the same letter and exponent. So we have 5x's minus 1x, which would leave us 4x's. And then we have 2x's minus 1, or excuse me, 2y's minus 1y, which gives us 1y. But we don't write this one here. It's implied. So we would actually write our final answer as 4x plus y. Find all values for x which make the equation true. So if I take a number and I square it and it equals 1, what's my answer? Well, x could be 1, but it also could be negative 1, because negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. The absolute value of x plus 1 is 3. Well, if I'm taking the absolute value of x plus 1, this right here has to be 2, because 2 plus 1 would give me 3. And then the question is, what number or numbers have an absolute value of 2? Well, x could either be 2, that's 2 away from 0, or it could be negative 2, that's 2 away from 0 as well. Simplify. So we have negative 2 plus negative 3. So these have the same sign. So we just add the numbers. 2 plus 3 is 5. And then the sign is negative because it was the sign on both of them. And then minus negative 4. These are things that we haven't done yet. And negative 5 times negative 2 comes first. So 5 times 2 is 10. They have the same sign, so it's positive. So now we have negative 5 minus negative 4. And when you subtract, you add the opposite. So we have the opposite of negative 4 is 4. So now negative 5 plus 4. Since they're opposite signs, I'm going to subtract 5 minus 4, which is 1. And the sign on the bigger number, negative 5, is negative. And then negative 1 plus 10. Opposite signs, 10 minus 1 is 9. The sign on the bigger number, 10, is positive. So my final answer is 9. Chandra bowled 5 games. Her scores were 89, 97, 112, 104, and 113. What was her mean score for 5 games? So the first thing that you do when you're finding the mean is you add up the numbers. So 9 and 7 is 16, plus 2 is 18, plus 4 is 22, plus 3 is 25. 2 plus 10 is, or 2 plus 8 is 10, plus 9 is 19, plus 1 is 20, plus 0 is 20, plus 1 is 21. 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So the total points that she scored was 515, and she played 5 games. So the next thing that you do is divide by how many games she played. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 times 5 is 1. 5 minus 5, 1 times 5 is 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. Bring down the 1. 5 can't go into 1, so it goes in 0 times. Bring down the 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. 0. So her mean score was 103. The number -1/2 is a member of which sets of numbers? Real numbers, integers, rational numbers, or irrational numbers? So first of all, integers are whole numbers, so it's not a member of the integers. Rational numbers are numbers that can be written as fractions. This is written as a fraction, so it's a rational number. And real numbers is for all of them, so it includes both rational and irrational. Something that is a rational number can't be both rational and irrational, so it's not irrational. Write the prime factorization of 77,000 with exponents. So I'm going to have 77 and then times 1,000. 77 is 7 times 11. 1,000 is 10 times 100. 10 is 5 times 2. 100 is 10 times 10. 10 is 5 times 2. 5 times 2. So we have 3 2's. So we have 2 to the third. We have 3 5's. 5 to the third times 7 times 11. Find n times n minus 1 when n is 10. Basically what they're telling us to do is put 10 in where you see n and figure out what the answer is. You do the parentheses first, so 10 minus 1 is 9, and then 10 times 9 is 90. The teacher asked for 2 volunteers. Andy, Benito, Chen, and Davina raised their hands. If the teacher picks 2 of the 4 volunteers, what is the sample space? Well, to figure out the sample space, we can say, well, if they pick Andy first, then they could either pick Benito. Actually, I'm going to do this as the table. If Andy's picked first, then they can pick Benito, Chen, and Davina. If Benito is picked first, then they could pick Andy, Chen, or Davina. If Chen is picked first, then they could pick Andy, Benito, or Davina. And if Davina is picked first, then they could pick Andy, Benito, or Chen. So if I look at this, this one is Andy and Benito. Andy and Chen. Andy and Davina. Then we have Benito and Andy. Benito and Chen. Or Benito and Davina. We have Chen and Andy. Chen and Benito. Or Chen and Davina. We have Davina and Andy. Davina and Benito. Or Davina and Chen. But then we have to look back, and this teacher is just asking for volunteers. It doesn't say that one volunteer is going to do one thing and the other, so they're just volunteers. So if we have Andy and Benito chosen, that's no different from Benito and Andy. So we can cross off the doubles here. Andy and Chen chosen is no different from Chen and Andy. Andy and Davina is no different from Davina and Andy. Benito and Chen isn't different from Chen and Benito. Benito and Davina isn't different from Davina and Benito. And then Chen and Davina isn't different from Davina and Chen. So the sample space for this is Andy and Benito, Andy and Chen, Andy and Davina, Benito and Chen, Benito and Davina, or Chen and Davina. So I'm just going to abbreviate their names so we can have Andy and Benito, Andy and Chen, Andy and Davina, Benito and Chen, Benito and Davina, or Chen and Davina. So what is the probability that Benito will be picked? Well, we look at the sample space, and anywhere there's a B, that means Benito was chosen. So here's a B, and here's a B. So there's 3 possibilities where Benito was chosen out of 6 total possibilities, which reduces to 1/2. The measure of angle ABD is 145 degrees. Find the measure of angle CBD, so this angle here. And we look at this and we notice that if you take ABD here and then move on from there and take CBD, that's a linear pair, meaning they add up to 180 degrees. So if we take 180 minus ABD's size, which is 145, that leaves 35 degrees for angle CBD. And if this is 35 in here, then the triangle has 180 degrees total. Angle C is 90. And then angle CBD is 35. So 180 minus 90 is 90, and then 90 minus 35 is 55. So CBD is 55 degrees.